Mississippi will use its new voter identification law for the first time Tuesday, requiring voters to show a driver's license or other government-issued photo ID at the polls. Now, the official reason given for the new law is alleged voter fraud, although the state hasn't been able to provide any evidence that voter fraud is a problem. The real reason for this law is to suppress the votes of the poor, especially African Americans, some of whom won't be able to afford the cost of a photo ID. It's a tragic irony that this law becomes effective almost exactly 50 years after three young civil rights workers, Michael Schwerner, James Chaney, and Andrew Goodman, were tortured and murdered in Mississippi for trying to register African Americans to vote. They were killed by a band of white supremacists, including the sheriff of Neshoba County. A year later, Congress passed the Voting Rights Act of 1965 as a response to the intransigence of Mississippi and other states with histories of racial discrimination, requiring them to get federal approval for any changes in their voting requirements, such as Mississippi's new voter ID law. But last June, the Supreme Court's 5 Republican appointees decided federal oversight was outmoded and unconstitutional, and that Congress had to set a new formula for deciding which states required federal review of voting law changes, thereby clearing the way for Mississippi's new voter ID law. But of course, Congress hasn't come up with a new formula because Congress is in gridlock and Republicans don't want any federal review of state voting laws. I knew Michael Schwerner. He was a kind and generous young man, and he meant a lot to me when I was growing up. Now, 50 years after his brutal death and the deaths of his co-workers, James Chaney and Andrew Goodman, 50 years after Freedom Summer, the state of Mississippi and the United States Supreme Court have turned the clock back. Please urge your senators and representatives to pass a federal law that restores the Voting Rights Act so Mississippi and other states with histories of repeated violations of voting rights cannot undo what Chaney, Goodman, Schwerner, and tens of thousands of other brave Americans fought to achieve: equal voting rights.